Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and welcome. My name is Puan Siti NORMADIHAH binti Wan Mat from SMK Methodist Parit Buntar Perak. In this video, we are going to look at the new assessment format for paper writing code 999/2. The focus is going to be on item response terbuka. In your question paper, you can find item response terbuka in part 2 and part 3. In the video also, we will look at some of the questions and also sample answers as well as the answering tips and techniques. I hope that this video can be very helpful, especially to all the SPM candidates. Hope you can pay attention and enjoy the video.
In this video, we are going to look at paper writing code 999/2. The focus is going to be on item subjective response terbuka. Before we begin, we will look at the format for item response terbuka. Item response terbuka can be found in part 2 and part 3. Part 2 is also known as directed writing. The students are required to write an essay of 120 to 150 words. There will be only one question provided for part 2 and the student must answer the question. The mark is going to be 20. For part 3, there will be 3 questions asked and students only have to answer 1. The options of essays in part 3 including article, report, review, and story. The students have to write an essay of 200 to 250 words. Part 3 is also known as extended writing. Part 3 carries 20 marks, the same as part 2 and part 1. And now we are going to look at the assessment scale for paper writing. There are 4 main criteria for which the students are going to be assessed and evaluated. The first criteria is content. And here is where we are going to look at whether the students have successfully fulfilled the task and answered all the questions. The second criteria is communicative achievement. This is where we are going to see whether the students have successfully communicated their ideas clearly. The third criteria is organizations, and for this part, the student is going to be evaluated on the way they have organized their ideas. And the last criteria is language. For language, the students are going to be assessed on their grammar, spelling, vocabulary, and also punctuation. We will begin with part 2, directed writing. Here are the things that you need to know before you answer part 2. Okay, first is to plan your essay. Planning your essay is actually very important because you do not want to spend a long time to write part 2. Because for paper writing, there are 3 questions that you need to answer. So it is very important that you allocate time. And when you have allocated the time for each of the part, you have to come up with proper planning so that you do not want to exceed the time that you have allocated. Okay, then to use appropriate register and tone. This depends on the questions. If the questions ask you or requires you to write in a formal or informal tone, then you have to use the most appropriate register and tone for your essay. Okay. The third one is the use of cohesive devices and linking words. The use of cohesive devices is important, especially in organizing your ideas so that it can be more organized as well as to make it more clear. Okay, more clear in terms of the message that it wants to carry. Okay, next we have to punctuate your essay accordingly. Okay, this is something that students tend to not focus on. They do not really pay attention for the punctuation, which could be a very big mistake for them to do, because punctuation actually will be considered as one of the language under the language criteria for the assessment scale. Okay, and the last one, we have to use appropriate and precise vocabulary, especially when in part 2, because for part 2 we are not supposed to write a long essay, and this is where precise vocabulary can help us to actually write an essay that can be more meaningful, but then it doesn't have to be too long. And here we have a sample of linking words that you can use in your essays. Okay, for you to memorize it better is to remember the word fanboys. And this is the acronym for the conjunctions that can be used in your essay. So linking words is important in joining your ideas together, as well as to actually shows that you have a very good command of the language. Next, we have a sample of cohesive devices that you can use in your essays. So each of the cohesive devices has its own purpose and functions. So it will depend on your sentences and whether you could use the correct cohesive devices that can actually carries meaning for your sentences. So this is very important because students tend to misuse the cohesive devices in their essays because they thought that it means something else. Another thing that students need to bear in their mind is to not overuse the cohesive devices in their essays, because it shows that you do not have a good command of the language. Now let's look at the sample question for part 2. Okay, we are going to look at the instruction first. You must answer this question. Okay, remember, you must answer this question. Write your answer in 125 to 150 words in an appropriate style. Your class has been discussing their leisure activities and your teacher has asked you to write an essay about your leisure activity. In your essay, you should write about what your leisure activity is, reasons for your choice, when do you usually do the leisure activity. Write your essay using all the notes and giving reasons for your point of view. Okay, now we are going to look at the questions closely. Okay, the first one. Okay, for this essay, you have to think of one leisure activity. Okay, remember, this part is very crucial. You have to check on the singular and plural, whether the question asks you to come up with one or more than one activity. Okay, next we have reasons for your choice. Okay, you have to come up with more than one reason for choosing the leisure activity. And the last one we have, when do you usually do the leisure activity? Okay, so all these 3 questions need to be included in your essay.
Now let's read the answer together. I have a few leisure activities. However, my favorite leisure activity is baking. I like to bake cakes and cookies. When I was young, I always helped my mom out as she baked a cake or cookies. Once I started secondary school, I decided to bake on my own. My first attempt was baking an orange cake. Unfortunately, it did not turn out well. Despite that, I was not discouraged. I learned from my mistake and tried again. This time, the cake turned out beautifully. The only complaint I had was that it was a little too sweet. I again baked the cake and it was perfect. I usually bake during the weekends or the school holidays. My mother and I also take turns baking for special occasions. I feel happy when I am baking. I also love it when people enjoy eating the cakes and cookies I made. Okay, now let's look at the three main questions that the students need to address. The first one is, what is your favorite leisure activities? And you can find it in the first paragraph, and the answer is baking. And the second question asks the reasons for choosing this favorite leisure activity. Remember, you have to provide more than one reason. And then we are going to look at the reason you can find in the last paragraph. The first one is the writer feels happy, and the next one is the writer loves it when people enjoy eating the cakes and cookies. Okay. It doesn't matter that you do not follow the sequence for the questions, because as you can see that the writer has provided the reasons in the last paragraph. When if he or she wants to follow the right order, she could provide the reasons on the second paragraph. But it doesn't matter where they want to put the reasons as long as they have mentioned it in the essay. And the last is, when do you usually do the favorite leisure activity? And you can find it in the third paragraph, during the weekends or the school holidays. Alright, now if you look at the essay, it is very short but precise. Alright, now let's look at the second. Alright, now let's look at the second sample for directed writing. Okay, let's read the question. Your teacher asks you to write an essay about an interesting activity you will participate during the upcoming school holidays. Therefore, you and your friends plan to do a barbecue session together and write about the session in your essay. In your essay, you should write about where you will organize the session, reasons for your choice, what are the things you will buy. Alright, now let's look at the first thing that you need to put in your mind when you read this type of questions is that you cannot choose the interesting activity. The activity has been chosen for you. This is where students tend to make mistakes because they suddenly want to write their own interesting activity, because they only read the questions once and then they just look at the first sentence, write about an interesting activity. So this is very important that you read the question twice to make sure that you really understand the question. And then, alright, this is the first point that you need to address, where you will organize the session. Reasons for your choice. Remember, you have to provide more than one reasons. And the last is, what are the things you will buy? Okay.
Alright, now let's look at the suggested answer for question. My friends and I decided to do a barbecue session this upcoming school holidays. It is the perfect opportunity for us to socialize. We would hold a barbecue session at a community park nearby. The spot is perfect because there is a designated place for group barbecue and public facilities such as cleaning station. The park is well kept, safe and clean. We have a budget of Rm270. This can cover the cost of renting the grill and buying the ingredients. We plan to buy some meat, fish balls, marinades, vegetables, snacks and drinks. There are a few activities we wish to do. which are games such as frisbee throwing match, playing croquet, and swimming in the river. We will definitely enjoy the party as we celebrate our years of friendships together. We hope that our end of year barbecue session will be an unforgettable memory. We are looking forward to the party. Okay, so now let's look at the answer for the questions that have been asked. Okay, the first one is the place, right? Where do you want to do the barbecue sessions? Okay, here is the answer for that question. At a community park nearby. Okay, next we have the reasons for choosing community park. Okay, why do you want to choose community park? Okay, here at the same paragraph you can find the answers. Okay, it has public facilities and the park is well kept, safe and clean. It also has a designated place for group barbecue, which is very convenient actually. So you do not have to think of coming out with a certain items. When you want to do a barbecue, you have to come up with a grill and you have to think of where to wash all the plates, So this park is actually designed for a group barbecue, and they have provided cleaning station, and the park is, more importantly, the park is well kept, safe and clean. Alright, and then the third question asks, what are the things that you want to buy? Okay, when you want to do a group barbecue, of course you have to buy all of this. Okay, the meat, fishbowl, foods lah. Basically, you want to buy foods. Okay, sorry. You want to buy the food for the barbecue. Okay. So, this is actually quite straight to the point types of answer. And then when you look at the essay, okay, the language is very precise. Okay, the language is very precise. All the vocabulary are appropriate, and you see how the writer, these students, coming out with their own idea. Okay, he or she, this writer, mentioned they have a budget of 270 ringgit, and then this is their own ideas. Okay, coming out with games. So these are the things that actually can help you. Okay, if you do not know how to develop your story, you do not have a lot of ideas, you can think of the examples that you can do. Okay, what are the examples that I can add to make my writing more interesting? Okay. Alright, now we have actually come to the end for writing part 2, and then we will move on to part 3. But before we end, I want you to remember that when you have done with your writing for part 2, double check your answer. Make sure that you have included all the points that you need to put in your essay. Next, count the words. You do not want to write a long essay for part 2. And this is very important so that you do not spend a lot of time focusing on part 2. And the last that everyone needs to do is to check their language. So you have to make sure that you have used the correct tenses, you do not make any spelling mistakes, and more importantly, you use correct and precise vocabulary. And these are all the 3 things that you need to know and you need to do if you want to score a good marks for your directed writing. And moving on, we are going to focus on part 3, extended writing.
Here are the types of essay that will come out in Part 3, Extended Writing. The first we have articles, review, and story. Okay, first we are going to look at articles. We write articles because we want to inform, to provide news, to advise, or to make comparison or contrast. Next, articles has format. So the format for an article is title and the name of the writer. The name could be right after the title or at the bottom of the paragraph of your essay. Alright, the tone for an article is formal. So this is very important. When the tone is formal, the language that you use should also be formal language. When you use the formal language, you do not want to use contractions. Okay. Now here we have a sample of question for part 3 for an article. Now let's look at the instruction for part 3. Write an answer to one of the questions 3 to 5 in this part. Write your answer in 200 to 250 words in an appropriate style on this question paper. Put the question number in the box at the top of the answer space. Okay, remember, before you begin writing your essay, you have to put the question number that you have chosen at the top box of your answer space. Alright, now let's look at the question. You recently saw this notice in the town newsletter. Articles wanted. Keeping the neighborhood safe. What can the residents do to keep the neighborhood safe? What facilities are needed to keep the neighborhood safe? How can neighborhood safety be improved? Write us an article answering this question. The best article will be displayed in the town newsletter. Alright, now we are going to look at the question closely now. Okay, the first thing that you need to know is that the title has already been chosen for you. Okay, the title is Keeping the Neighborhood Safe. So there is no excuse for you not to write the title. Remember, when you want to write articles, you need to follow the format for an article. An article should have a title. So you do not have to think of the title because it has already been provided for you. Now we are going to look at the questions one by one. Alright, now what can the resident do to keep the neighborhood safe? So as a resident, or what can the resident, the people who lives in the neighborhood, do to keep the neighborhood safe? So the word that we are going to focus here is the word do. So you know that the questions only ask you to come up with one action. One action. Okay. What can the resident do to keep the neighborhood safe? And then what facilities are needed to keep the neighborhood safe? Okay, so here facilities. That is the word that you need to highlight. Facilities, plural. So you have to come up with two or maybe more than one. It can be three or it doesn't matter, but you have to come up with more than one facilities. To be safe, either select 2 or 3. And then the last one is, how can neighborhood safety be improved? So this is like the general idea. How do you think as a resident, how in general can we help to improve the neighborhood safety, to increase the security in the neighborhood? Okay, now, in order for us to see how to answer this type of questions, we're going to look at the sample answer. Now, we're going to look at the sample answer for the articles. Okay. Keeping the Neighborhood Safe by Nurul Arisha Jamaluddin. Recently, our neighborhood had experience of spate of robberies, and this is a serious matter for all of us. It is time for all the residents and the authorities to take action to keep the neighborhood safe. What can we do as responsible residents? Firstly, we could form a neighborhood watch group. We can then take turns patrolling the neighborhood at night. A WhatsApp group or even an app could be created for all the residents to keep the neighborhood safe. In order to make the neighborhood safer, the lighting in the neighborhood should be improved. Apart from more street light, each household too should turn on their porch lights in the evenings and install motion detector lights in the back or at the sides of the house. Another way to keep the neighborhood safe is by being friendly with our neighbors. We can offer ourselves as a resource in case of emergencies or help needed on other residents' end. In a friendly environment, neighbors could then easily tell each other if going away so that we can keep a lookout on each other's houses. It is important that all the residents cooperate in order to keep the neighborhood safe. If everyone works together, the neighborhood will be safe. Okay, now let's look at the first thing that we have here is to add the title. Okay, the title actually has been provided in the question part. Okay, next we have the name of the writer. So these two things is actually the only format for an article. So for article, you need to have a title as well as the writer, the name of the writer. Okay, so this is the introduction part. Okay, the introduction part just mention the case of the criminal case that occurs in the neighborhood. Okay, and then here is the something that students need to know. Okay, what can we do as responsible residents? Okay, this is actually a good tips on writing an article. Okay, by asking questions, the tone of the articles is formal. Okay, the tone of the article become formal. Okay, next we have the first question that the students need to address, which is what can residents do? What can residents do uh, to make the neighborhood safe? Okay, sorry. So they could form a neighborhood watch group. Okay, so when you have mentioned your answer here, okay, you have to include explanation. Okay, why do you want to form a neighborhood watch group? So you explain because you can take turns to patrol the neighborhood at night, and you can have a WhatsApp group or an app to help to keep the neighborhood safe. Okay, so this is this part here. Okay, the explanation actually supports your answer. The supporting details that supports your thesis statement. Okay, your main idea there. Okay, next we have facilities. Okay, remember the questions ask you facilities. So you have to come up with more than one facilities. So in this essay, okay, the first facilities mentioned is lighting, the porch lights, and the motion detector lights. Okay, so there are three facilities mentioned for question 2. Okay. Next, we have question 3. How to improve neighborhood safety? How actually you can help, okay? You as the resident, how can you help? By being friendly with neighbors, okay? Why is it that being friendly with neighbors can help? Because when you are friendly with your neighbor, you can ask for the favor from your neighbor. Okay, you can ask them to help to keep a lookout for your house. Okay, keep a lookout on your house. Okay, so for part 3, it is not enough that you mention the answer. Okay, the answer for each of the points, the question point. you also have to come up with elaboration or explanation that can actually support your answer, your main ideas there. Okay, so when you have all the points for this part for your essay, then you can score full mark for content. Okay, this is why this is what makes the new assessment different with the previous SPM format. Previous SPM format, for extended writing, they do not provide points. They do not provide questions. But for this new format, the students have to answer the points that have been provided to them. Okay, so this is what makes it different with the old format. Okay. Alright, now we are going to look at the next type of essay, which is review. Review is quite new because we do not have review for the previous SPM format. It has been introduced in CEFR. So students have learned to write a review before when, I think if I'm not mistaken, in Form 3. Okay, so now let's look at what are the things that should be put or that should be included in when we are writing review. Okay, the first is title. However, it depends on the question. If let's say the question asks you to put a title for the review, then only you put the title. If the question did not mention anything about the title, you do not have to put title. Okay, next, the tone for a review is informal. Okay, review is like you are suggesting something or you want to give your opinion on something. However, you do not have to write your review in formal language. Okay, it can be like you are talking to your friends. You can use the language, the types of communicative language, like you are talking to someone close to you. Alright, now, okay, here are the things that you can do a review on. Okay, the first is restaurant. Okay, this is we have done this in Form 3 where we have to review, if I'm not mistaken, an Italian restaurant. Okay, next we have book. Okay, this is quite common where you have to do a review for your favorite book. Okay, let's say if all you students, you do not read any book, you do not have any book or any English book, you do not read any English book. Okay, this is going to be quite problematic because you can review Malay novels, let's say, but I think it's going to be better if you review English storybooks. However, it depends on your preferences. Maybe you do not know that you do not know any English book and you do not want to make up something that you do not know. Yes, you can review something that you have information on. Okay. Next, we have movie. Okay, movie. Okay, I think this is one of the easiest thing for you to do a review on. Okay, because everybody watch movie, everybody has their favorite or movies that they feel very something that they really enjoy watching. So this is going to be quite easy for the students to do. And then okay, hotel could be quite difficult to review because you need to know a certain thing when you want to review a hotel. You need to know about the accommodations, you need to know about the location, you need to know the price and the attractions that you can, the place of attractions that you can visit that are close to the hotel or the star rated of the hotel that you want to do a review. Okay, so if let's say you do not have the knowledge or you do not have the information, but you want to try to write a review of a hotel, you still can, but it's going to be a little bit difficult for you if you do not have the experience. So for you to know how to write a hotel review, I would suggest you to do a reading on page like Agoda, Trivago. You can look at the review. Okay, there will be a review section. You can read and then you can get your information from the websites. Alright. Okay, this part I think applies to book and movie. Okay, because when we talk about synopsis, we normally talk about book or movies. We do not talk synopsis of restaurant or hotel. Okay, so remember, when you are doing a review, you're not actually doing a synopsis. You are not telling the story from the beginning until the end. However, you are giving your analysis of the book or the movie. Okay, you can talk about the movie or the book casually, or you can mention some of the characters, but you do not give away the ending. Okay, the ending of the books or the ending of the movie, because if you do, you are not actually doing a review, you are telling another story to your friends. Okay, you are telling a story, you're not doing a review, you are telling a story. Okay, so remember, a review is not a synopsis. Okay, and the last thing that you need to bear in your mind when you want to write review is you have to come up with your own opinion. Okay, do you like it? Okay, do you think that you want to recommend or you want to suggest the things that you want to review to others? Okay, if you do not want to recommend, then you have to provide your reason why you don't want to recommend, or if you do, okay, you also have to come up with the reasons why do you think that others should like something that you like. Okay, all right. Now let's look at the sample question for review writing. Okay, for writing a review, sorry. Okay, we do not need to read the instruction. Okay, we just we are going to look at the question straight away. Okay, now let's look at the question. You recently saw this notice in a magazine. Okay, this is the notice. Reviews required. Have you watched any interesting movies lately? Send us your movie review. Say what you enjoyed about the movie. Would you recommend the movie to your friends? Why? Alright. The best review will be published in our newsletter. Write your review. Okay, now okay, we know already that this is a review of a movie. Okay. Alright, now you have to choose one movie that you think is interesting. Okay, and that you have watched that you have watched lately. Okay, it doesn't have to be a movie from a cinema. Okay, it can be a movie that you have just downloaded, or a movie that you watch on, let's say, on Netflix or on YouTube, or maybe on a TV. You know how a certain channel shows a movie, right? Okay, like HBO, Cinemax. So maybe you watch a movie from there, and then you think that the movie is actually very interesting. Okay, and then you want to do a review. Okay, you want to send the movie review so that it can be published in the newsletter. Okay, you have to say, okay, what you enjoyed about the movie. Okay, what do you enjoy? What do you, when you watch the movie, what are the things that you feel the most interesting? Okay, the most interesting part of the movie. Okay, and then would you recommend the movie to your friends? Why? Okay, this is like I have mentioned previously. Okay, if you like the movie, Okay, if you enjoy the movie and you want to recommend the movie to your friends, you have to provide, okay, why do you want to recommend this movie to your friends? Okay, now let's look at the sample. Okay, here is sample answer for a movie review. The one that we look at the question just now. Okay, Spirited Away is the first Hayao Miyazaki movie I have seen, and I will certainly watch his others. The story plays on many elements successful with kids' movies that transport you back to your own childhood and allows the young audience to connect with the themes in the movie too. What I enjoy about this movie is the wild and wacky characters that made it very unique and interesting. The movie is visually beautiful and you would not expect it to be emotional as well. The story centers around Chihiro, a young girl about to move into a new place and who feels insecure about the new environment she will be living in. These fears become a part of her encounter with a strange abandoned amusement park that she and her parents find when they reach a dead end in their car. The world of Spirited Away is simply bustling with life, unique, quirky, instantly lovable creatures jostling about their daily activities and tasks in the bathhouses, dancing across the screen like leaves caught in a playful summer breeze. The story is imaginative and the characters and animations endlessly unique and strange. The characters are likable and we become engrossed with Chihiro's adventures inside this bathhouse and the characters she comes into contact with. I would definitely recommend this movie to my friends, as Spirited Away is a film you will want to see time and time again. It is no surprise that it is considered as one of Miyazaki's masterpieces. Okay, now the language is very good. Okay, this is one of the example of essays that have a very good vocabulary. Okay, word like cookie, jostling, wacky, wired characters. Okay, so you can actually, okay, when you read this review, you know that the writer has a very good commands of language. The vocabulary is very high in terms of their proficiency. So the proficiency is very good. Okay, now remember the question asked to mention the movie's title. And here we know that the title is Spirited Away. Okay, what do you enjoy about the movie? Okay, this second paragraph here, you can look at the whole sentence that we have here. Okay, the writer straight away mentioned what I enjoyed about this movie. Okay, what is it that this writer enjoyed about this movie is the characters in the movie. Okay, the characters in the movie, which are very unique and interesting as well as wacky. Alright, now would you recommend this movie? Okay, when you want to recommend the movie, you have to mention why do you want to recommend the movie. Okay, according to the writer, Spirited Away is a movie that you can see time and time again. Means you can watch it plenty of time without getting bored. And also it is the director's masterpiece. Okay, so this is enough for you to convince your friend to watch the movie. Okay, so this is a very good example of writing a review that actually did not give away the story, maybe the first part of the movie. How does the movie play? Okay, the first part of the movie we know, but the writer, the students, is very good not to give away the whole plot. Okay, the whole plot. So instead, the writer mention what are the things that the viewer or the viewer of the movie, those who want to watch the movie, will enjoy. What are the things that we can look forward to when we watch the movie? So this is very good. Okay, not everyone can write this type of review, because some review, when you read the review, it's like, okay, I know already what will happen, because the person is actually giving away the synopsis of the whole movie. Okay, so we do not want to give away the synopsis. Instead, we want to know what are the things that we can look forward to when we want to watch this movie. Okay, now I think that's all for the review. Okay, so moving on to the last type of essay that we will find in part 3, and this is the most famous one among the students. Students really love to choose story, and there are reasons for why students love to use to write story in their essay. Now let's look at the things that we need to know when we want to write story. Okay, I think the reason why students love to write story is because they do not have to bother themselves with format. Okay, some students really avoid to write anything that requires them to follow a certain format. Next, okay, if you want to write a story, the tone for your language is supposed to be informal. Okay, the language is informal. Okay, this is the reason why the students love to write a story. Okay, they can be creative. Okay. If you are an imaginative person, or if you have a lot of experience writing, reading storybooks, let's say storybook, or maybe watching a lot of movies, you can play your creativity very well when you want to write story. Okay, all right, this is actually the reason why the student really want to write story in their essay writing, is because story is thought to be easy according to them. Okay, they thought that writing a story is easy. It can be easy, but whether or not the story that you write is interesting, it has to depend on the readers of your story. If the readers are enchanted with your story, then maybe you are a good storyteller. But if you're not that creative when you write a story, then those who has to read your story will be very that's another story. Okay, I'm not going to tell you about that. Okay, and then this is the tips of writing a good story. Okay, for you to elaborate on your story. Okay, sometimes students start, okay, I don't know how to write the next plot. Okay, I don't know how to go to the next plot. Okay, I don't know how to add, how to put something that can make my writing or my story to be more interesting. Okay, this is where the use of 5 sensories can be very helpful for you. Okay, we have the taste, the smell, the sight, the hearing, and the touch. Okay, now you can remember when you want to describe the taste. Okay, like you are talking about food. Okay, food. How does it taste like? Okay, this is where vocabulary of for tasting. You have to you can think on the best word to describe taste. Okay, like mouth-watering, scrumptious. Okay, those words. And then we have smell. Okay, what are the vocabulary that can enrich your writing? Smell. perfumey, something like a wood burning, like a freshly cut grass, the smell of freshly cut grass, or the smell of the ocean, something expressions that can describe the smell. Okay, and the same goes to the sight, hearing, touch. So each of the five sensory can actually let you think of the vocabulary that can actually enrich and make your story more interesting. Okay, and the last is adjectives. Okay, adjectives help you. Okay, the function of adjectives is to describe the noun. Okay, you want to describe. Let's say you want to describe a house. Okay, how are you going to describe the house? Okay, you can talk about the shape, the color, and what are the adjectives that can help you to paint the house so that the writer, the reader who reads your story can actually imagine. Okay, they can imagine what is it that you want to write. Okay, so this is where this is how you are going to make your story more interesting. Okay, you can play with the five sensory and also adjectives. Okay, I'm going to show you one example of story that use the five sensory as well as the adjectives. Okay, but before that, when you want to write a story, okay, you can use the 5W1H questions to help you to develop your story. Okay, you can come up with the characters. Who are the characters in your story? Okay, what happened in your story? Okay, where does it take? Where does it take place? And when did it happen? Okay, sorry, when did it happen? Okay, and then all right. Every story has plots. Okay, you have the inciting incident, introduction part, and then you come up with the climax. Okay, the climax is actually the most important parts of your story, and after that you have your falling action, and the last part you have the resolution. Okay, how does you want to end your story? That is the resolution. Okay, now let's look at the sample for question that asks you on story. Okay, the question asks, you have seen this announcement in an English language magazine. We are looking for stories for our magazine. Your story must begin with this sentence. Mira knocked on the door of the house. She was determined to find out who lived there. Your story must include an old woman, a surprise. Okay, if you look at the question, there are not a lot of things required for you to do. You just have to put an old woman and a surprise. But remember, you have to write in about 200 and 250 words. Okay, how can you elaborate? How can you develop the two items, an old woman and a surprise? Okay, so this is where, okay, we are going to look at the sample. Okay, but before that, remember, the question asks you to begin your story with the sentence. So you cannot begin it in any other way. Okay. Alright, so this is something that you need to put in your. Alright, now let's look at the sample answer for writing a story. Mira knocked on the door of the house. She was determined to find out who lived there. She had recently moved from Kuala Lumpur to the small village. It was refreshing to have a change of scenery. During her walk around the village, she had stumbled on a charming wooden house surrounded by wild bushes and flowers. It was like one in her mother's favorite painting. She had often admired the house's beautiful rose garden and was hoping to meet the owner to ask for gardening tips. She knocked again nervously. There was still no answer, but a wonderful sweet smell of cooking was coming from the kitchen. Someone must be here, she thought hopefully. A few moments passed and she decided to head home. Just then, she heard a soft cry. "Help me, please." She ran to the back of the house and pushed her way through the back door in panic. An old lady was lying on the kitchen floor. "I fell over and I think my ankle's broken," she explained weakly. After calling for an ambulance, Mira comforted her. As she stroked the lady's soft white hair, she was astonished to see a birthmark on her neck. It was exactly the same shape as hers. Much later, they found out that the old lady was actually her great-aunt Aminah, who had disappeared years ago after she married an English sailor. As it turned out, Aunt Aminah got back to this country 5 years ago when her husband had passed away. After that, Mira spent many happy evenings in the house listening to old family stories and eating delicious cake. Alright, so this is a quite interesting story. Now let's look at the introduction part. Okay, the introduction part, the writer do not provide a lot of information for introduction part. Just some information that we as a reader need to know, that Mira recently moved from Kuala Lumpur to a small village. Okay. Next we have, okay, this is where we discussed previously on the play of the five sensory sight, smell, and so on. Okay, so here we can actually imagine, we can actually see in our mind the surrounding of the village where Mira saw a charming wood house, okay, and that was surrounded by flowers and bushes. Alright, so this is why writing a story is very, it's very important that you play along with the vocabulary when you want to write stories. You have to put adjectives to make your story come to life. Okay. Next we have the play on, yes, the sweet smell of cooking that was coming from the kitchen. Okay, so she knew that actually there was someone inside the house, because someone obviously she can smell the smell of cooking. All right, so next we have, okay, this is the part that is quite vital in the story. Okay, this is the climax part. Okay, you can look at how Mira was surprised, astonished to see a birthmark on the lady's neck. Okay, this is the crucial part. This is the climax part. Okay, this is where the story peaked. Okay, if you look at the charts for the plot of the story, okay, so this is the peak. Okay, why does this lady has the same birthmark as her? And then later on, okay, so for the resolution part, they found out that they are actually a long lost relatives. So the story had a good ending where the two long lost relatives reunited again, and they actually live in the same place. Okay, so this is how you want to answer story type of questions. Okay, not just I want to write a story, because story ni very easy. Okay, it's very easy. Okay, I just want to write about this person, and then no, you have to play along with the words, the vocab. You have to come up with the proper adjectives that can help your story to become very lifelike. Okay, all right, now I hope that all of these tips can actually be very helpful for all of you students, especially for writing part 2 and part 3, also known as item item response terbuka. Alright.
We have come to the end of our video, and before I leave, I want to wish best of luck to all the SPM candidates, and hopefully
all of you can score A's in your paper writing. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and goodbye.